Hi Booktube, it's Amy, and we're back again reading from the Anatomy of Bibliomania by Holbrook Jackson. Today on page 176 of my edition, with a section titled, They Raise and Quench Thirsts and Are Potent Beverages. I thirst for Mr. Burke's reflections on the Revolution in France, says Gibbon, and he asks Cadell to entreat Emsley to dispatch it to Lausanne with care and speed by any mode of conveyance less expensive than the post. Dibdin was violently seized with a thirst for black letter literature, which was somewhat quenched with a copy of More's Utopia of 1551. Hazlitt drank of the stream of knowledge and eagerly slaked his thirst of German sentiment with Goethe's Sorrows of Werther and Schiller's Robbers. It was late in life that Cicero became acquainted with Greek literature, absorbing it with avidity as though yearning to quench a long-continued thirst. But many authorities agree that in any condition approaching bibliomania, this thirst is not so easily stayed. 'Tis, in short, an unquenchable thirst for possession. So insatiable is the thirst of men for books, that they take delight in a vinous denomination of their favourites, as Pasquin in his Pilinodia called a piece, a pleasant pint of poetical sherry. Leigh Hunt cried out for Literaria Hilaris, Godin's in a score of volumes to have at hand, like a cellar of good wine against dull and rainy days. Fielding should be port, Farquhar champagne, Sterne Malmsey. Whatever the possessor cast eye upon, such a collection he would know that he had a choice draught for himself after a disappointment, or for a friend after dinner, some cordial extract of Parsons Adams, or Plume, or Uncle Toby, generous at heart could desire, and as wholesome, for it is as laughter for the lungs. Sir Henry Saville, in the dedication of his Tacitus to Queen Elizabeth, likens that history to wine, and his translation to the lees, but since her highness has held the former in most worthy account, she would not disdain the latter, for he hoped that it might peradventure pleasure her, though by change from vessel to vessel, having taken wind and lost his pleasing taste to the palate, yet retaining somewhat of his former strength. So a library is a cellar stored with wines, spirits, and other rich beverages. Dr. John Brown looked upon Stevenson's Travels with a Donkey as a new liqueur, fresh and aromatic. The poems of Catulle Mendes were sweet as a smooth perfumed yellow wine to George Moore. Edward Fitzgerald lamented that the songs which Tennyson stuck between the cantos of the Princess had none of the old champagne flower of his earlier songs, and that Gil Blas was too thin a wine for him, all sparkling with little adventure, but no one to care about. Froude always carried a collection of pocket classics on a journey, for Greek and Latin literature is wine which does not spoil by time. Coventry Patmore found reading theology like living on brandy and soda water, and he liked to consume the spirit of his favourite books, diluted with his own thoughts, not with those of other people. For Joubert Voltaire was like clear water, Bossuet clear like wine. Edmund Gosse records that to put Tom Cringle's log into the hands of youth is like giving a glass of brandy neat to someone who has never been weaned from a milk diet. Tom Hood was little grieved when reduced through ill health to the drink that drowns kittens, because he could still quaff such rare liquors as the champagne of Molière, the Monte Pulciano of Boccaccio, the Hock of Schiller, and the sherry of Cervantes. Depressed bodily by the fluid that damps everything. He got intellectually elevated with Milton, a little merry with Swift, rather jolly with Rabelais, whose Pantagruel he found equal to the best gruel with rum in it, and Robert Lang, the melodist of Dibdin's Decameron, though devoted to a fine table, his beautiful house, and beautiful bookcases, having witnessed many a scene of delightful conviviality, placed Verard above Johannesburg, and Michel Le Noir beyond Champagne. Some reliable witnesses will have that books are cordials, who let me taste that more than cordial dram, the sharp, the rapier-pointed epigram. T. Edwards told Samuel Richardson that as people kept their cordials for the winter, so too he now fled to his, which were Pamela and Clarissa. And what more characteristic of the power of potent liquor than Emerson's testimony to that miraculous force which proceedeth from them, when after he had we have gone forth, musing into a night of gloom, where no constellation shines, no muses descend. The stars are white points, and the roses brick-colored dust. The frogs pipe, mice peep, and wagons creak along the road. We return and take up Plutarch or Augustine, and lo, the air swims with life. The front of heaven is filled with fiery shapes. Secrets of magnanimity and grandeur invite us on every hand. No other cordial has such power to restore the depressed soul of a man. Books are ever ready. It is always tempus aptum with them, always opportune. They are ever willing, and when other potions flag and fail, it is us that upholds us. It is rather they that upholds us. I tried to cheer myself by thinking over the joys of our human lot, but there wasn't one of them for which I seemed to care a button, not wine, nor fame, nor friendship, nor eating, nor love-making, nor the consciousness of virtue. Then he, and our footnote says Logan Purcell Smith in trivia, then he thought of reading, and the nice and subtle happiness of reading was enough. This joy not dulled by age, this polite and unpunished vice, this selfish, serene, lifelong intoxication. And unlike all other liqueurs, the barrel never runs dry. The bottle is never empty. A good book is always on tap. It may be decanted and drunk 100 times, and it is still there for farther imbibement. My Aristophanes is nearly drained. That is, for the present first reading. For he will never be dry, apply as often as I may. Ending there with a quote from Edward Fitzgerald from Letters and Literary Remains. That brings us to the end of that section. The next section here is going to be titled Bibliobibacity. Bibliobibacity, that's quite a word. Bibliobibacity with a digression of ecstasy. So that will be our next reading, which does appear to be, that one is quite a bit longer. That's going to be a much longer video there. That takes me 8 pages or so, which will bring us to the end of this section on book drinkers. But we'll end it there for today.